Cyberpunk and Eldritch Horror in the same RPG system? Okay, you have my attention. I'm XPLovecat, and today I'm going to be doing an initial impressions of this new system, Existential Essential, or XS for short. XS was published by Momodi, and it is on Kickstarter until May 31st. I was given a free review copy, but I am not getting paid for this video. XS takes place in an alternate future reality in which corporations have banded together to create an all-consuming, controlling entity called the CS. CS stands for Corporate Syndicate, and don't worry because they're going to provide all your necessities and amenities for you. There's no longer individual governments in this world. The CS is all controlling, and there's no individual countries or really differentiating cultures. It's just a big amalgamation of a lot of different things. Your needs are met by the CS at no cost, and in exchange you just do some assigned labor. No problem, right? And right away we get the tone of this RPG system because on the first page there is a quote that says, "Oh yeah, psychics exist, and there might be such a thing as eldritch horrors. Have fun." Let's start off by talking about character creation. Within a session, it is very likely that your character is either going to die or go insane. So much so that the rulebook actually suggests going into a play session with 2 pre-made characters. That way, once your first inevitably goes insane or dies, you have a second one to take its place. There are 9 classes to choose from, including some pretty fun ones like Freak and Nanomancer. Each character has 5 inevitabilities, which in other systems are usually called stats. These 5 are anxiety, cantankerous, megalomania, obsession, and pedantry. And there are associated skills with each of those inevitabilities. Now you'll probably notice that these names are pretty non-standard and not something you'd normally find in an RPG system, which that just adds to the overall vibe of this gameplay. It's silly, it's fun, it's fast. So to create a character, you pick a class and then you spend 10 XP on skills and traits that are listed under that specific class. You assign 1 die type to each of the different inevitabilities, and then you get to buy 6 starting equipment. Or you can scrap all of that and just use the pre-gens in the back, in which they have an example for each of the 9 classes. We did struggle a little bit with the character sheet. It was a little bit cluttered. You'll see on the 2 pages there's quite a lot of words, some of which I think could have been removed and enhanced for more opportunity to write out equipment and effects on these character sheets for reference. But what I did like about the sheet is that there are spaces for each of the different dies for your inevitabilities, so it was really easy to grab that during play and in the heat of combat. Moving on to system mechanics. So how does the game actually play? So if you want to do something within your game session, you basically declare that, and then the GM chooses the best fitting skill associated with your action. Then you take your die that's associated with that inevitability and add any bonuses or penalties that you have in that specific skill. You add those 2 together, and then you have to beat a quota that is determined by the GM, or usually a default of 4. Combat is pretty similar, and it is highly recommended that you use a grid for this system for combat. Now, the grid rules are not nitty-gritty. They're not going to take you a long time like a D&D 3.5 where you're doing a lot of math on the grid. It's really simple. You're just moving different spaces and counting away spaces for your length for range combat, and it just makes the combat and play go more easily and smoothly when you're able to see all the enemies and the PCs on the table at once. So if you're starting combat, you roll initiative, and then you have 1 action and 1 move. Then the quotas throughout the combat, or as they call it in the book, a duress, is based on how well that the PC or the NPC rolls on their attack. Now, we've got to talk about horrors too. So if there's something horrifying present, this is where the inevitability tables come into play. And basically every turn, these PCs are rolling on these tables, and it will do various effects. So for example, if you were rolling on the obsession table and you got a 3, the character claims a eureka of sorts and becomes haunted with the idea that whatever is on their mind is the very reason and purpose for their existence. They become possessed, acting unlike their normative self in obvious fashion until they get what they're looking for. And then the actual effect or mechanics behind that is the character is unable to drink, eat, or rest and refuses any treatments until the character rolls a natural 3 on a die for any action. So there's a lot of variety in these tables, but they can get pretty deadly. If you roll a 1, normally that means you're just going insane or dying, and you're gonna have to move on to your second character. Next, let's talk about rulebook layout and usability. This rulebook has a unique quality to it in that everything on the left side of the book is lore or a specific table or picture that you might use during gameplay. And then on the right side is actually the rules and the statistics. So the lore is woven throughout and there's not a dedicated section for it. And I thought that this worked pretty nicely, just being able to know where to go, which side of the book to look at for each individual thing, and they were always associated with each other. So if there's equipment, then the pictures and descriptions would be on the left and the actual rules and statistics were on the right. This was really good when I was using the physical book, but if you're scrolling on your phone, it's not quite as effective because you're just seeing one page at a time. That being said, it wasn't distracting on my phone, so overall I thought it was a cool feature. I like the dedicated sections for NPCs, equipment, and character classes, but the core rules were a little bit hard to find because they were scattered throughout. The rules themselves were pretty easy to grasp once you had all of the different pieces. But when I was sitting at the table during play and I wanted to reference a rule or make sure we were playing it right, it was a little bit difficult to find in the book where it actually was. And I was hoping for a little bit more specific examples just to confirm that we were playing everything correctly. There was a nice nomenclature section at the front, but it left me wanting more, and I usually had to dig for the rule anyway. Moving on to production quality. Let's talk art first. I really think this is a highlight of the game. So the different line drawings and style fit with the tone very well. There's a lot of exaggerated features and inclusion of great cyberpunk and Eldritch elements. I mean, look at these drawings. They're so fun. And overall, what I'd say about the rulebook is if you're someone that wants to learn new systems and you like role-playing games, but you dread actually reading the rulebooks, XS has got your back. This book was a ton of fun to read through, and I was looking forward to cracking it open and getting to learn more of the lore and have a laugh. The way that this is written is very silly and the tone is genuinely funny. For example, you see text like, "Things needed to play, a body to preferably host the brain." And you have different equipment types like the polluter scooter, and the NPCs are super fun too. Overall, the tone is very fun and I actually really enjoyed reading through this rulebook. So my overall thoughts and who I think this game is best for, this is a very burn and churn type system. You're going through characters very fast. The pacing of the sessions are pretty fast as well. There's not a ton of emphasis on investigation or slow burn. It's get in there, have fun, be silly, go insane, and probably die. So that lends itself to being good for shorter sessions. I would say about 2 to 3 hours is a good session length for this type of game. And so if you have limited time, this might be an easy thing to bring off the shelf and play with your friends. I also think this is better for bigger player counts. So I had a lower player count at the table, and I was wishing there was a few more players there to interact with and have fun and goof with one another. So I would say the minimum for this game to be fully effective and fun would be 3. And it could support up to probably 8 players, which is great if you have a big group of friends. So if this game sounds interesting to you, check out their Kickstarter. It's live until May 31st. The link will be in the description below, and the PDF is really cheap at $10, and you can get the hard copy for $35. So check it out, support them, and hopefully you have fun playing XS.